Alright, our next problem, 22-1A, is asking us to do a direct materials and direct labor variance analysis. And so in this situation, like the previous one, where we're actually going to look at two different types of costs, so we're going to look at direct materials and direct labor, and so we need to separate these out into two different sections here. And so this problem tells us that we have Fancy Furniture Fixture Company. It makes faucets. Let's see, it's 100 employees, 40 hours per week, and it gives us both standard and actual information. And so it's asking us to do the standard cost per unit for direct material and direct labor, and also the direct material variance and the direct material quantity variance. Alright, so let's start this off with the direct materials and the actuals. And so it tells us that the actual quantity of brass used is 59,875, and it tells us that the actual cost was $272. And over here for the standard quantity, so it tells us that the number of faucets produced during the week was 11,820, and that the standard pounds of brass per unit is 5 pounds. So we just take our 11,820, multiply that times 5. So the planned quantity of pounds of brass is the 59,100, and it gives us the standard price of $280. So that gives us a price variance of a favorable $4,790. Okay, that makes sense that it's favorable because the actual costs were less than the flexible budget. It gives us a quantity variance of unfavorable $2,170. And so that is because we actually used more pounds of brass than we had planned. So that makes sense. Gives us a total variance of 2,620, the sum of these two right here, and that's still a favorable variance. So now for the direct labor, so the actual hours used was 4,000, and that the actual wage was $21.40. It gives us the standard wage of $21. And so for the hours used, so it tells us that it takes 20 minutes to make one faucet. And so we're down here, so the actual gave it to us an hour, so we need to turn that 20 minutes into hours. And so we can just take our 20 minutes and divide that by 60. That gives us the number of hours used, and then we just multiply that times the total number of faucets, which was 11,820. So for labor, we have a price variance of 1,600 unfavorable. That's because we paid more per hour than we had planned. For a quantity variance, we also have an unfavorable variance because we actually used more units than we had planned. So we have two unfavorable variants. So we add them together to get a total unfavorable variance of 2860. So not too bad. All right, so our last problem is 22-2A. And so, kind of like I talked about before, you can set these up in any ways. I really do like this way. It makes it easier to see. But in this one, I think it makes just the way that the information is laid out, it makes a little bit more sense to put it in a table. So we have I Love My Chocolate Company, makes dark and light chocolate, requires 2 different kinds of materials, cocoa and sugar. And so we have our standard information for the amounts we use, the cost, and then it gives us our actuals down here, what it actually cost us, what we actually used. And we want to prepare a variance analysis for both chocolates based on the actual results of production. So, all right. So, we'll start with our direct material variance. And we want to plug in our actual price. Our actual prices are down here. So, we have $7.33 for the cocoa and $1.35 for the sugar. And then our standard cost is going to be up here in our first table. So $7.25 and $1.40. So that gives our variance per pound. If we add in the actual quantity used, so the actual quantity used is down here. So we have 140,300 and 188,000 for the sugar. So in this situation, the actual price was higher than the standard price, and so that is going to be an unfavorable variance. In this situation, for the sugar, the standard was greater, and so that's going to be favorable variance. And that means so the unfavorable was greater than favorable, so we have a total unfavorable variance. And so for our quantity variance portion, we want to plug in the actual quantity used. And so we did that right here. And then get the standard quantity that we planned on using. And so for the standard quantity, that is going to be, for the dark chocolate, we got 12 pounds of cocoa times the actual production on this case. So, because the quantity that we're talking about is actually the pounds of the cocoa and the sugar, so we want to use the actual so see the actual cases used. So that's going to be 12 times 5,000, and then for the light chocolate, so there was 8 pounds times 10,000. Oops. Missed a zero. Oh, there we go. 10,000. So the standard quantity for the cocoa was 140,000. And then for the sugar, same idea. So we have the 10 pounds times 5,000 and our 14 times our 10,000. So the standard quantity for the cocoa and the sugar was 140 and 190. We want to plug in our standard price, which we entered that up here. So $7.25 for the cocoa, $1.40 for the sugar. So that gives us, for the cocoa, a variance of $2,175. Now we used more than we planned, so that's going to be unfavorable. And for the sugar, we used less than we planned, so that's going to be favorable. And so overall, that will be a favorable variance. All right, for direct labor, so for direct labor, we have a rate variance for what we paid, and we have a time variance for the number of hours that we put in. And so if we start off with the actual rate, which was $15.25 and $15.80, and then we have our standard rate up here of $15.50 for both. So we have a rate variance per hour of 1/4 of an hour and 0.3. Enter in the actual time. So the actual time for labor hours used is over here. So 2360 and 6120. So for the cocoa, we have less hours than we planned, so that's going to be favorable. For the sugar, we had more hours than we planned, so it's unfavorable. Gives us an unfavorable variance of $12.46. So now for the time variance, start by plugging in the actual time used. So we entered that above. And then we need to enter in the standard time that we plan. And so for that, we have half an hour right here, so 0.5 times our 5,000 cases. And then for the sugar, or sorry, for light chocolate is 0.6 times our 10,000. These need to be separated here. There we go. So we multiply that times the standard rate, and so we have the standard rate of $15.50, and so that gives us a favorable variance on the cocoa an unfavorable variance on the sugar, and overall a favorable variance. And so the total direct labor variance is going to be a 1246. Oops, that's not right. Get the formula work. So that's going to give us a total variance of 936, and that is going to be an unfavorable variance.